Welcome to the For Cultural Purposes podcast. My name is Shaun and I'll be your host. I created this show because I got tired of watching conversations happen online with no nuance. Everyone always says, if you want nuance, don't go on the internet. I'd like to change that, even just a little. Each episode I'm spending about 15 minutes talking through two culturally relevant topics, one that speaks directly to Black and Brown communities, and another that zooms out and connects us all, regardless of background. I hope you'll stick around for both. Even if it's not your culture, I promise there'll be something here for you. First topic I want to cover this week is the ongoing tension between Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James. I thought now was the perfect time, now that the NBA season has ended, a lot of the smoke around this is kind of wind down and we're fully into the playoffs. I'll say it up front. I'm a Lakers fan, I'm a LeBron fan. Kobe Bryant is my favorite athlete of all time, but LeBron James I think is the greatest basketball player ever. I'm not going to get into the Jordan and LeBron debate on this particular episode, but we could talk about that later. But this is not about my fandom. This is about the logic. This is about framing. It's about narratives. Bronny James was drafted 55th overall, and he's holding his own, not just against the two players drafted after him, but even compared to a whole group taken before him. So when Stephen A. Smith got on television and said, LeBron James as a father, stop this, my first thought was, stop what? Bronny is under contract. He's suiting up, playing in the G League, putting up solid numbers. He's getting minutes. He's getting better. You can see the improvement. So again, what exactly is LeBron supposed to stop? If Bronny was out here making headlines for the wrong reasons, if Bronny was outside of crypto arena doing something embarrassing his dad, selling dimes and nicks to somebody, I could understand a statement as heavy as a father, stop this. But he's not. He's playing ball. He's keeping his head down. He's doing the work. So why does this criticism feel less about performance and more about presence? Now, here's where it really gets strange. Stephen A. has admitted this was for ratings. He did it for engagement. And of course he would. He works at ESPN. He just got a fat new contract. It makes sense that he's trying to drive engagement. But don't wrap it up in some kind of moral high ground. Don't act like this is about fairness or meritocracy or that you just have some issue with this kind of nepotism. Because if you do, we should probably talk about the other Stephen. That'd be Stephen Jones, president of the Dallas Cowboys. He's had that role for decades. And the Cowboys, year after year, are perennial underachievers. I always hear Stephen A. talk about my buddy Jerry. I seriously doubt Stephen A. has sat Jerry Jones down and said, Jerry, as a father, you got to stop this. You got to fire your son. And that's sort of my broader point. We never really seem to be too worked up about the nepotism that owners who regularly hire their entire family for various roles across their franchises, we never say anything about that. But for some reason, this black man doing what we always ask black fathers to do and claim many of them don't do is somehow the issue. A father calling out another father. Stephen A. is a father to a couple of girls. And rather than celebrating another black man doing what we all should be doing as fathers, you're asking him to stop this. It makes no sense to me. You mean to tell me that if all the conversations we've had about the importance of black fathers, one of the most visible ones in the world supports his son and now he's the problem? It's the same old issue, I think. The table never really feels big enough for us. So instead of expanding the table, we start swinging at the folks sitting behind us or beside us or next to us. LeBron never handed Bronny a ring. He didn't give him a guaranteed career. He opened the door and his son walked through it. That's not nepotism. That's a generational return on investment. And let's flip this a bit. Stephen A. has daughters. He has a nephew who's regularly on his podcast. Are we pretending that his nephew is the best person to be on his podcast, that he fully deserves to be there? Are his daughters expected to be the best at whatever it is they're striving to do? Or do we accept that his reach and his affluence has enabled his families to reach levels of success that they probably wouldn't have otherwise without his influence, access, and affluence? And here's the part I cannot shake. Stephen A. Smith is the journalist in this situation. He's the elder as well. I believe he's 57 years old. He's the one who knows how narratives can shape a player's career or ruin one. Now, let's be serious. LeBron's fine. There's nothing about this that's going to change LeBron's legacy. It's pretty much etched in stone at this point. But I still ask, why not have a conversation that sounded something like, look what's possible when a father shows up and his son puts in the work? So here's my question to close this out. Is it all worth it? The clicks, the engagements, the sound bites. Is it really worth attacking one another for clicks over culture? Just something to think about. For those of you who may not know, I live in New York, currently recording in my apartment in Brooklyn. And for this second subject, I wanted to talk about the helicopter crash that occurred in the Hudson on April 10th. So, for those of you who may not know, on April 10th, the helicopter crashed into the river. All 6 people on board died. A family of 5 visiting from Spain, and the pilot. No survivors. A mom, a dad, and 3 kids. I believe it was one of his kids' birthday and they were on a tour. Now the FAA is scrambling, the company is grounded, the media is spinning up its cycle, but none of that happened before the crash. All of it came after the damage was done. The aircraft was operated by a private tour company with a documented history of safety issues. They filed for bankruptcy in 2019. It lacked flight data recorders. That's not just a lapse. That's neglect. And this isn't an isolated event. It's part of a bigger pattern, one we've seen over and over. People hear deregulation and think less red tape, easier business, more freedom. But what deregulation actually means in practice, fewer guardrails, fewer inspections, fewer chances to catch a problem before someone dies. And when those problems surface, when tragedy hits, the same story unfolds. The company gets fined, issues a carefully worded statement, promises to do better, then they move on until it happens again. Take East Palestine, Ohio. Back in 2003, a train carrying toxic chemicals derails in that small town. The brake system, outdated. Why was that allowed in the first place? Because an Obama-era rule requiring modern safety brakes was rolled back under Trump's first term. Now, I know I'm going to mention Trump and Obama. A lot of people's eyes are going to roll in the back of their head. I promise you, I have no intention of getting overtly political in this particular episode. That'll be for some later episodes. But I think it's important to mention the impact deregulation has, because we often talk about it in this very simplified way that doesn't include lives lost. A while back, Subway's got sued because, the sandwich place, got sued because people found out that the bread had yoga mat material was part of the ingredients in the bread. And they had to change the bread. Very often, there's a whole issue right now around tariffs and how some countries, well, Australia won't take our meat. They don't take our meat because of some of the hormones that are in our meat. If you feel a way about the food you're consuming, it's probably a good idea to want regulations because those things protect you. But getting back to East Palestine, Ohio, and the idea of how companies just pay these fines and keep on moving, the company responsible for what happened in East Palestine is a company called Norfolk Southern. They expect to spend about $1 billion cleaning up and compensating victims. That includes $600 million for a class action lawsuit settlement that occurred in February of this year, $22 million paid directly to the village of East Palestine, and $310 million to the federal government for environmental cleanup and penalties. Now you may say, well, Shaun, that's in helicopter and that's one train crash. Let's talk about Boeing. Last year, maybe 2 years before that, they had panels flying off in midair, bolts left off doors, whistleblowers silenced or worse. And still somehow planes keep flying. Not because they're safe, but because the consequences of failure are cheaper than the cost of fixing the system. So far, Boeing has paid out $2.5 billion tied to 737 MAX disasters. That includes $243 million in criminal penalties, a little over $1.7 billion in airline compensation, and $500 million in the fund for the families of crash victims. That brings me to this. There's a saying, if the penalty for a crime is a fine, then that law only exists for the poor. Because for corporations, a fine isn't a punishment. It's a budget line. It's damage control. It's permission to keep cutting corners and absorbing the loss as long as the stock price holds. So when that helicopter hit the Hudson, the real tragedy didn't start in the air. It started long before, when oversight was stripped, when regulators looked away, and when a company with a history of problems was still allowed to operate, and the people who paid the ultimate price never got to make that decision. So ask yourself, who benefits from the rollback? Who gets paid to fail upwards? And who gets left cleaning up after the fine is paid and the cameras move on? Because until we change the structure, until fines stop being cheaper than lives, nothing will change. And hope Well, hope alone is not a safety plan. Well, that's it for episode 1 of For Cultural Purposes. If you made it to the end, thank you. I know long-form content isn't easy for everyone, but I appreciate you giving this space your time and attention. I promise this is just the beginning. My goal is to drop new episodes every week, 2 stories, 1 rooted in culture, 1 zoomed out into the systems that shape us all, and both asking the same question. Beneath the noise, how do we get better at sharing this giant ball of mud we're all spinning on together? Because at the core of this show is a belief that we're not just arguing over opinions. We're trying to figure out how to live with each other, how to build something more equitable, more honest, more human. So if you've got a topic you think matters, especially if it's culturally relevant, drop it in the comments. I'm listening. I want to be in this conversation. I want this to be a conversation, not a monologue. And if something here resonated with you, do me a favor, like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs it. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and let's keep figuring out how to live on this spinning rock together. Have a great week.